Okay, here we are. I guess I don't know if this has ever been done on I Hate Mud before, but I'm doing it for the first time along with these guys. Angelo Jordan's with us today, Drew Schumann. So my name's Michael Ware. I go by CCA on the forum. I'll let these two guys introduce themselves real quick. What inspired this video was I wouldn't say I'm a noob to the forum. I've been lurking and reading for a few years now, a year and a half anyway. And I fired up an account and started paying a little bit closer attention, asking just a couple of questions. And I thought, well, I've got a rough idea of what I think I want to do. Maybe I should bounce that off some people who've been where I'm trying to go, or might have a little perspective so I could see if what I want to do is realistic, completely asinine, or just leave offended and go do it anyway in spite of all the good advice I get. So that prompted me to bring about a series of questions and see if I could talk some people into joining me for a discussion. So these guys are here to. So Angelo, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Angelo Jordan. I'm the Crazy Greek on Mud, and been wrenching on these things for a long time. Grew up around cars. I'm on my 9th FJ40 build. I've done them, nut and bolt down to every single little thing, or I've done some, quicker turnaround ones as well. So, and I like to, get into trouble and, that kind of thing. So, but it's kind of cool to be here. I've been thinking about doing something like this myself for a while, but, I figured, I'm not sure how good it would be or how useful it would be, but I'm glad, you guys decided to put something together. It's kind of, see how it goes.
Drew?
All right, I'm Drew Schumann. I go by 120 millimeter on the forum. I was introduced to Toyotas since I was a kid. My dad was kind of a hoarder, and we owned a bunch of Toyotas. I actually met my first Land Cruiser overseas. I was working a contract with the State Department. I used to be an ethnographer or an ethnographic researcher, and I was an intelligence officer for the U.S. military. Not at the same time, but I've done both. And every time I went over, I was in a Toyota Land Cruiser of some kind. So when I got home, the first time I decided I really needed a Land Cruiser. I was looking for 40s. I got an 80 instead because they're awesome. And then I got rid of that. I took it to Europe with me back in 2017 and just tore Europe up with it, sold it for profit, and then went ahead and snagged an FJ55 when I got home from that.
I've seen the 55 and I'm a fan, by the way. I don't know. I just like smaller profile vehicles with great big tires hanging off them. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's my version of Corvette. I don't know. But anyway, I'm seriously considering, I'd like to shoot for 1974 for no other reason than that was the year that I was born. My kids are still little. My daughter will be 12 soon. My son's 7. They want to participate in this with me. I learned to do things like this with my dad and my uncles when I was a kid. I'm already teaching my kids to do mechanical things and to get a little bit of mechanical knowledge underneath under their belt. And they say that they want to help, so we'll see. And besides, if it's the same year that I was born, I think if they end up being addicted to crack, it'll be a little bit tougher for them to sell it when I'm in the nursing home. So we'll see.
Right, that's a good idea. That's good backup point.
So if when nothing else, when it all else fails, use guilt. So
yeah, 74 to me is that actually. It's funny you said that year because I thought about all kinds of different years, but that one is a nice sweet spot, and it's right before the smog, number one. Right. So as far as, having to worry about that, you're going to be fairly okay. But it's got the jump seats, roll bar, bucket seats. Right. It's got all those features. But yet it still doesn't have the ambi doors. But I like the old doors, like that's the last year of the old style doors. And so that little combo is very, it's a unique combo. Called it has like the 1.5, they call it a 1.5 F, it's got a different little bit of an upgraded F motor in it and things like that. So
Well,
that's a nice sweet spot. That's a good choice for a year, I think. Best one.
That's best case scenario. Keep in mind.
Yeah.
So when the package all comes together of affordability and value, I probably won't be too picky about the year. I'm just saying if all things fell into place, I would love that. Otherwise, if it's truly a solid vehicle, a good builder, or a good bargain, I'm probably not going to care about the model year. I'll just do what needs to be done. And I've got no fundamental problem with retrofitting disc brakes on the front end of something, or maybe both axles, depending if they're drums or whatever else. And then the same thing with obviously steering. I mean, I would prefer power steering if somebody's done a good modification, but if not, quite willing to do it myself. I know that this will fly in the face of some of the purists, or all the purists for that matter, but I really don't care about the 6-cylinder engine. I don't want one. I want a small block Chevy, and frankly, I want a belt-driven supercharger, so basically a belt-driven turbine. For no other reason, something 5 psi, 7 psi, nothing crazy. And this is going to piss some people off too, but I would like to have this little hickey in the hood where this thing's sticking up, just so everybody that sees it.
Oh, like, Lord Jesus!
And I'll be like, all right. Well, I'll lift the hood and I'll show you. So I know that that's silly. And if you ask me why, I would just say because I can. That's why. So so I know I want to do that.
What kind of numbers are you wanting? Like, what kind of range and horsepower? I mean, I'm imagine you're going up there, but torque and horsepower. What are your goals and for your motor besides just a V8?
Nothing.
No, just whatever it ends up being, huh?
I don't want to exceed 400 horsepower because I don't want to have to worry about what I'm going to have to do to the rest of the drivetrain in order to withstand that. And also, I should tell you up front, just so that everybody understands the purpose for this vehicle. This is more of a Sunday driver, go to church, monkey around, maybe take it out west because we have property in Colorado as well. Drive around some Ranger roads. I am not going to rock crawl with this. I am not going to drive down through creek beds and mud. My kids may want to do that, but that's what we've got side-by-sides and four-wheelers for. This is going to be a family vehicle that takes the place of the convertible that my wife keeps saying she wants, and I keep saying no to. So this is the happy medium, and it's not a daily driver, but it's going to see hard surface roads primarily. So it doesn't have to have big horsepower, nor do I want it. I don't think it's necessary. I just want to
supercharger is for show. It's not necessarily for go.
No, definitely for just a slight throttle response, but as I said, cool. 5-7 psi, nothing crazy.
Right.
So 400 horsepower total horsepower at the flywheel and below. That's truly what we're looking for.
Whenever I think about doing my dream rig or building one up exactly the way I would want it, I always keep in mind, am I going to let anybody else drive this thing? So if my kids are going to drive, my wife's going to drive it, what does it need to be? What shouldn't it be? Right. So those things I keep in mind when I'm building. So that's something to think about. You'd want a short wheelbase rig and then, too much torque, too much horsepower. If it's not you driving it, that, or they get really trained up on how to drive it.
Yeah.
Before they shoot it down the freeway or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at the horsepower thing. To me, I don't care as far as engines go, what people want to put in there. The one I'm thinking about building I've got it started, but that thing is just, you talk about a monstrosity. People would want to, they'll kick me out of IH8MUD once they hear about the engine training. Although it's GM combo, so we'll leave it at that for now.
So I don't need. Let's say that I want to stay 400 horsepower below, 350 below, something like that, not to exceed. Yeah. I don't need to replace the axles in a standard FJ40 with something any beefier.
No, those things are like 60. They're like the millimeters. They're about like a 60. As far as how beefy they are.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they're precisely the same, but they're close enough. And people will tell you, you're gonna break berths and do all that. That's with what you just said about how you're going to drive it. I don't see any chance of that. I don't see you binding up with lockers and trying to go up some weird rock formation. That's when that stuff type happens,
Okay.
So when I got I got 35s on mine right now, 12.5 by 35s, and about a 12-inch, 13-inch lift.
Oh, wow.
It's a little big. The wife and the dog both complain getting in and out of it.
Yeah, I was going to say. A little elevator to get up.
I have to drop my my tongue about 15 inches to haul level. But anyway, when I took mine to get those new tires on it, the dudes at the tire shop they were Jeep guys. They said like, who built your axles? Who built your suspension? I'm going, that's Toyota.
The fine gentleman from Toyota. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
That's all of them. They're pretty beefy. Yeah,
it's funny. It's funny you get used to it, right? You know, because I've owned a Jeep, you know, that kind of thing. But it's funny you get used to your 40 axles, and so you look at other axles like other Jeeps, especially. You're going, what in the hell? You know, they look like twigs comparatively speaking, as far as you know the diameter and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing how beefy they made them way back in the day.
Do I need to seriously?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, do I seriously need to consider like adding something to the differentials themselves to avoid twist? I mean, are 3 points and some of those things actually necessary for what I'm describing, or is it just window dressing, or is there any true value in that for what I'm trying to accomplish?
So you're asking about changing up the suspension itself? Is that what you're saying? Or what?
I'm asking about welding something onto the differential and adding a bar. So do I actually need a 3 point?
Like an anti-wrap bar or something?
Yes, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Are those things actually necessary? I mean, there are some modifications that I have read about that make sense, like this reverse shackle and some of these other things that, you know, are small changes, but change rideability and steer and oversteer and understeer and some of those things. Those make sense. I get that. But do you think I need some of that other stuff, or what are the value? What's the value associated with that?
To me, it's for I would say drivability or comfort, because I guess where you want to go, right? So if you want to get comfort out of it, you know, the most popular comments you'll see around those types of things are, you know, what springs you're going to run, right? You got Alcan, you got OME, you know, old man, you got various ones out there. OME seems to be by far the most popular choice for the best riding springs. And I've done, I think, 5 of my rigs with those springs. As far as adding, you know, features like shackle reversals, I've had 1 rig with a shackle reversal on it. And to be honest with you, I didn't notice too much of a difference, a little bit. The steering wasn't upgraded though, really. You know what I mean? So it still ran the stock steering geometry. So that's why I didn't see it. As far as, you know, rough ride, it helped a little bit, right? When you get up hitting railroad tracks, things like that, where you know, deal with more of an impact on your front axle, then you'll feel it, you know, absorbs a little bit better.
Okay.
But it's a 40, so, you know, there's the percentage increase in awesomeness wasn't necessarily, you know, I didn't really feel it that much. I wouldn't say, oh, wow, I got to do that every time, right? Unless somebody can, you know, put one together, I think, with an entire package, right? So power steer, you know, add a power steering, you know, and I wouldn't, if you go power steering, I would not go anywhere near even though a lot of people do this, I wouldn't go mini truck, right? Because it keeps all your linkage in place, and that's where all the slop comes from. That's where all the issues are, really. I think we have 27 points of contact between your hands and the road, so that could be, you know, issue. Although most of my rigs, I don't mess with those too much. You know, so the Saginaw or the 60 or the 80 boxes are probably the best ones. You know, everything seems to be really tight on those. I only had 1 rig that had an 80 box for steering. It's night and day as far as steering goes, and higher speeds are more comfortable, right? You feel a little bit more at ease, because you're not turning to go straight, right? It's kind of the thing with when you have either Saginaw or, you know, 80 box or something like that.
So these boxes that
those things, yeah, go ahead.
So these boxes that you're talking about are going to take the place of the original box. Some modification or some brackets that you can buy or some fixtures or whatever.
Yep. There's kits. Yeah.
And these are going to use the same pitman arm that comes off, or am I going to start changing things like that?
No, right. You'll start changing things out.
Okay.
There's a lot of guys that have done it though. So that's one thing about that particular, you know, upgrade. And, you know, you're not going to go with the stock engine. So as far as the next most valuable upgrade to me, that would be, you know, your steering. because it just gives you this whole other level of comfort and, you know, ease of mind. Like I said, you know, it's less linkages and stuff. So yeah, but there's kits out there. They can get really expensive. That's one thing I really bugs me about is a lot of things that you want to do are really, really spendy. You got to really dig around. You know, if you're a resourceful person, right, you can kind of find all the parts yourself and get them from various places, and that might be the way to go. But I found a box that I used, and I'm using it on my next build, that I found that, and it's way, way cheaper, and you can get it basically rebuilt new, and it's almost identical to, and it's Japanese box, but it's the Nissan Xterra steering box. Nobody talks about it, but that box has the exact right like turn lock to lock on it, and it mounts exactly the same as an 80 box would, right? As far as on your frame and how it mounts, the dimensions are the same. The pitman arm teeth, right, are the same. So it's almost an identical box, and you get it for up $200, brand new off Amazon. So that's one of the things that I found that is great. It's a great upgrade without having to spend all that money. Sure. And the rest of the pieces and parts you can get, you know, from anybody. But that's just a little hint that if you're going to go upgrade the steering, one of those types would be good. Saginaw, okay, you know, is also in that realm. Yeah. But anyway, that's my thought on that. But as far as rest of the suspension goes, kind of hard to say. I don't see anti-wrap being helpful in the back, or I don't see any kind of, you know, really, really good shocks. Get yourself a set of Bilsteins, good steering setup, you know, and good set of springs, and you're good. I mean,
so nobody's interested really in the spring over axle. They stay with spring under and just get a upgraded
yeah
kit.
I've not done one of those myself. I got a buddy here in Salem that's done one, and he swears by it, right? The springs have to be really, I shouldn't say beat up, but his are flat, right? They rest on top really flat, and it does ride nice. But you're going to be jacked up quite a bit, right? That lift, that's about a 6-inch lift ish. So 35, 37s kind of looked okay with that setup, but talking to the IH8MUD Land Cruiser guys. No.
Yeah, mine's
what the hell are you doing?
Mine's a spring over. My 55 is a spring over lift, and they look good on a 55. I've sat in a 40 with a spring over, and I felt exposed. I felt really vulnerable way up there.
It's a little, it's a little teetery, right? It feels like you're just,
So what's a common tire size that's for a 40 that's big and somewhat aggressive? Are we talking 35 is the max? Most people are.
I would say 35 is minimum.
Oh, really?
On a spring, I mean, 33s would look awfully small, right?
No. Let me back up. For a spring under axle with a more of a standard lift. I mean, so let's say that we lifted up 4 inches. I mean, is that 35, 33s work well or what?
33 1050s, right? Everybody swears by those, and that's mostly what I run all the time. So yeah. Drew, what do you think?
What's the deal, Drew? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I think the pizza cutters look really good, frankly.
Yeah.
No way, I ain't doing that.
I know.
Well, the 33 1050s, I mean, those are pizza cutters, but they got enough girth to them, right? They look proportion. One thing about like 40s, right? You can easily take the proportion really right off on those things. Too big of tires, and it looks, you know, Hot Wheelish. Too little, and you're looking like, you know, that's a whole magical, you know, I don't know, you know, formula you got to figure out. But 33 1050s with that traditional 2.5, 3 inches area, right, of lift, that just looks. It looks like it could be stock, right? It looks like it could have came from the factory that way. It looks sharp. The wheels don't stick out, right? You don't have to put fender flares on it and that whole thing, right? So it keeps your mud under your fenders, and it's just an all-around good overall size tire. That's why most people, I think, go, you know, with that. If you got any kind of lift at all, you know, 2 inches or more, between 2 and 4. Once you get to 4, 35s look okay, right? And then it kind of goes from there.
Okay. Well, I'm not interested in the rolling up somewhere and some guy saying, you out delivering mail in that thing. I mean, you pull that out of a 40-year-old mail yard. I mean, that's not what I'm going for. Right. So I want something that's
I think aesthetically, you can get away with bigger tires if you use like a Steely wheel or an artillery wheel. I think there's an aesthetic at work here. When you start talking mags, especially the contrasting black and silver or black and gold mags, you start looking like you belong in Mexico City.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a different, got a different, you have to really balance, like I said, it's a balance. So if I was going to build a longer wheelbase, like stretch a wheelbase out, like say like a 43, you know,
I'd love a 43.
Yeah, the 40. I like the length of a 43, but more wheelbase, right? You know, the wheel isn't set. I don't like the way the rear axle's centered in the rear of those things. I would move it back like 7 or so inches, get it really centered in there. But if you had that kind of a setup, 35 would look just about perfect, right? On that, and I still stay as skinny as you can, right? So what, 1250, I guess, would be about, you know, and then wheel size 16s maybe. You know, you might be able to get away with a 17, but when you get to a 35-inch tire, I think a 16 is about where you want to be, you know, because 15 looks starting to get way too much rubber profile on the side. You know, it's just, again, it's that whole look thing, and it's all personal preference too.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I saw one the other day and I don't know if he had them custom made or what, but they appeared to be steel wheels that he had, I assume, powder coated or something, kind of gray. And from a distance, it looked like they yanked them off a Humvee. I mean, there was a ring of bolts and then another ring of bolts, and I'm like, you know, that's kind of silly in the grand scheme of things, but it sure does look like it fits, you know, and I don't know, but something like that kind of appeals to me.
Yeah. As long as it isn't chromed, as long as it has color, you can get away with it, I think.
Right. We got to put a pearl, like purple, like a pearl on there. So it has 17 colors based upon the sun. That would be
yeah, no,
terrible.
That's not my thing, I don't think.
I was gonna pull up a little. I was gonna see if I could pull up a render of one of my the idea I was thinking, and it's kind of this kind of thing. I imagine if you geek out enough on this stuff, right, you can spend hours just like coming up with wheelbase, tire size, and all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna see if I can yank something up here on my computer and then share it with you guys. And you guys can see kind of where I'm at. Yeah. Okay. This is an FJ. This is an FJ. The tires I think are a little small, but this is an FJ company 43 series, right? And it's got I redid it a little bit, right? I kind of photoshopped it. Let me see if I can get something. Do we have sharing available in this thing? I hope.
As far as I know, if I need to,
I can share my screen. Oh, no worries. I think I see it there. Let me get where I need to go here. Get back to that and then get back to that. Oh, host disabled.
I'm a big fan of some of the
screen
FJ
share.
companies.
Go ahead and see if you can do, I don't know what you can do to, I use WebEx at work, and that's what I use all day, every day. So it's a different application. I'm not sure everything is in Zoom.
How about I make you the host for a minute?
All right, that'll work.
Okay, go ahead.
Hopefully it keeps recording. Yeah, looks like it. All right, cool deal. Let's see here.
Well, he's bringing that up. Are you going? You want something that's like a soft top, or you gonna go with bikini top, or?
Well, okay. So here's the deal. My wife's telling me, because she wanted a convertible, that she really wants a bikini top, a soft top type of thing, so it can be taken off a lot. And we have a Honda Pioneer 1000-5, and with a I assume it's some sort of polymer or nylon or whatever top on it. And the fact of the matter is, yeah, I like that. I like something similar to that. So what she's asking me for is something that, you know, she can drive down the road and the wind blow around. Now, when we drive down the road in this Pioneer right now, and you get much over 30 miles an hour, and of course we don't have a windshield in it, but it blows around us enough you can't speak, and her hair gets blown out of the place, and she ends up wind blown, pissed off, and comes home not having dug the ride. So I really don't believe at the end of the day that I'm going to put a lot of time and energy initially into anything but a hardtop, because I don't believe ultimately she'll like it very much. So I've got a picture pulled up that I can share when we're done talking about this, Angelo, that's kind of similar to what I'm going for. And okay. I'll just share it with you, and you can tell me what you think. So That thing looks pretty
Here's
slick.
here's the other. Now here's what it looks like normally, right? You guys see that? So the axles, up closer, and actually really, they almost really don't. If you look at the mounting points of where everything's mounted on a 43, it's almost the same as a 40. I mean, it seems like it's a different rear spring, and that's about it. And then it's because it only has 4 more inches of wheelbase from a 40. But when you flip it, right, and let me do this one, back to this one again. When you're, I think that's the one I was on. I can't, my eyes are terrible, number one, so I apologize. Which one the hell was it here? Okay, there we go. And I just moved, I centered that rear wheel in the rear well. And so to me, it just looks aesthetically better. And then, like I said, I could use bigger tires, but that's the whole thing about tire size and that whole thing is, how does it look? How does it fit right? That's kind of where I look at all of it. So
yeah,
let me go ahead and stop that. But yeah, that's my idea of what it should look like, and hopefully, when I finally get one that I'm going to keep for myself forever, that'll be kind of what it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let me.
Yeah, I turned on sharing for everybody, by the way, so it should work for everyone.
Okay.
It's like we got a waiting room person, by the way. Oh, that's me. I better do that.
Oh, there you go.
I'm the host. I forgot. So let's see if David is going to join us here. He's got his video off. I'll throw the hosting back to you, by the way, Michael.
Okay.
Here. I think you can just do. Let's see, right there. Okay.
Okay, let me do the share screen here real quick. I think I'm doing this right.
Yeah, it's a little different. It's pretty straightforward.
Are you seeing are you seeing an FJ40?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know what this is. I'm guessing this at 4 inches or so of lift. They got and it looks like a decent rack up there. The spare tires on the back, winch, just something around there to keep the headlights from getting beat up too bad. Not that I'd ever have to worry about that very much, but that genre of appearance, look, bumper, I even like the color. I mean, all this stuff's
satin paint.
Yeah, I wouldn't bother me a bit. I'm not really.
Whose rig is this? Is this a Mud Members rig? Or?
Oh, I don't know. It's something I found that the guy wants $95,000 for. I found it on just by searching some images.
Oh,
but
he knows what he has.
Pretty proud.
That's right. No tire.
You never know. I mean, you never know.
So this is the kind of thing that I'm interested in trying to achieve, or similarly get to. In terms of the back, I'd like to build a rack so that I could, if I properly size this, I think I can get a couple jerry cans there, or take those out and put a small cooler in there type of thing to save a little space inside. That's kind of what the thoughts are. Definitely a winch, something I can use if I actually have to get myself, if I do this right and set this up and use the winch pull cable backwards underneath it, I might be able to get myself out of something. Because I talk to a lot of guys that say, actually, when I get stuck, I don't find myself pulling myself forward that much. I'm usually trying to get back. So how these guys set up the front end winch, in my opinion, will make a big difference on how the hell they get out. So
yeah, you can throw a fairlead in the back somewhere, and just string it through that way. That's a good easy way to do it. Yep. The dash right there, that's a little rough with the with the texturizing.
Oh yeah, it's very thick. You could tell by looking.
He's like it'll let her rip. All right.
Yep, I know. So this whole I want 95,000 thing, I don't know if this guy got it or not. I wish him the very best, but
down.
But this is kind of what I'm interested in.
Yeah, the vibe definitely has that vibe. Yeah, for sure. I get your vibe. It's kind of cool. I get the overall just looking at it. I saw it driving. That'd be pretty cool rig.
Okay.
Looks like he's got FJ series wheels on it or something. I'm not sure what those wheels are.
I don't know.
Like FJ, cruiser type wheels is what they remind me of just looking at them. I'm not sure if they're anything else other than, I can't really tell if they're steelies or if they're you know, aluminum or whatever. Yeah.
Let me see here. So how the heck do I get done sharing?
Just up at the top, I thought I red, something in red. I think it's a stop, something like that.
Let me see here.
If you move your mouse and move it up to the top.
Yeah. No. Well, in the meantime, while I'm figuring that out, I was going to ask you guys about drivetrain. So basically, from a small block Chevy back, should I be trying to reuse whatever's in it? Do you go with a different transmission? I mean, what's smart there?
Drew, you want to chime in on that one, or?
Yeah, I tell you what, the one thing I hate to say this, I wish I had an automatic in mind.
Yeah, no, it's not a bad thing. I mean, that's what I'm going to do when I build my, I keep referencing to this rig that I'm trying to get to, but yeah, same thing here. Yeah, having an automatic is huge. Drivability. Yeah.
I don't know what is available that fits on these because I've not even considered it, and I wasn't into it when I first got it. But I know you're not going to seriously wheel, but actually going off road, that automatic is the way to go, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay,
yeah,
so
you get your I mean, could you get your overdrive right? Automatically give you your overdrive, which is huge. If you're running a V8, then the RPMs and noise and all that stuff really not going to be a problem for you. It's compared to the 2F or 1F, but it's like that's one thing I think the engines on those, right? These things are built like tanks. The engine drivetrains on them are bulletproof. They'll last forever. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And then those little big group folks just leave it alone, right? It's good to go. It is what it is, and that's what it's designed for. But like as we move forward through time, right? Everybody wants to have old school looks, new school drivability, right? Trying to at least get there a little bit, right? Get to some point where it's drivable. And like I said, my whole thing would be, can my mom, my wife, my daughter drive it, right? That's kind of would be how I would think about how I'd want it to be. If I really wanted to make it a daily or at least some kind of a part-time driving vehicle. But yeah, automatic tranny. So if you're gonna go V8, right, then that's easy. That's an easy one. Then, but what I would do, and a lot of guys don't, it depends on the year of the motor you put in it and all that. But if you do find a V8, let's say it's old school, whatever, just 700 R4, right? You keep the electronics out of it as far as the transmission goes, right? Engine, of course, I would, if I was going to go V8, I would all day, every day go with more modern, right? One that has the ECU, one that's computer control, has all the different things on it that you want to kind of have. So an LS or whatever, from the mid to late 90s on, I think it would be a good choice for your motor, because then you got a lot of diagnostics tools that are in there, they run nice, they're more efficient. There's all kinds of bonuses there. But as far as the tranny and transfer case goes, right, then that's an easy decision. V8, 700 R4, or you're gonna buy, maybe you get a combo with the 4L60, one of those types of combos is good. And then that you could just take I would go 19 spline transfer case, right? So split transfer case behind whatever tranny, right? And the 19 spline, it's the one in the 8 from the 80s, so it's a lot quieter, stronger, and like George Esther over at Valley Hybrids, and they do those all day, every day kind of thing. So there's a lot of knowledge, and a lot of people have done those setup before, and you can get kits for it, right? So, I know George has a pretty good deal on it. He'll put together, like, I don't mean to toot George's horn or nothing, but I forget what the costs were on it, but he has a nice thing where you tell him what kind of tranny, you gotta say it's a 4L60, for example, or a 700 R4. He can literally get that adapter. You get the advanced adapters, right? The advanced adapter piece. He'll take that and rebuild you a transfer case with the adapter, all assembled, and just ship it to you. And then when you get it, you just bolt it on, and that's a nice way to go. one of those Orions if you have deep pockets, good old Orion transfer cases. But that's like a little bit overkill for what you're describing you want to do with it. So
Well, I had planned on doing a preliminary anyway, something similar to that, but not same, because there are some question marks that I still have, but probably want to do, as I said, a V8 and then a small block Chevy, and then displacement. I'm not worried about 350, 383. I'm not worried about a stroker or not, whether it ends up 355. I don't care about that. So I can do all that, and the cooling system, make all that stuff work. I was not going to do a more modern engine like a 5.3 or anything like that, because I planned on bolting the fuel injection, an aftermarket fuel injection on to mate up to this belt-driven supercharger. So
right, like a sniper setup or something like that.
Yeah, so I've got the benefits of fuel injection, startability, that kind of stuff, but I don't have a wire lumen 50 sensors hanging off this thing to tinker with when I'm out there in the middle of nowhere and screwing around and nothing works. And oh, by the way, I don't have my little meter. I don't have my little plug-in. I don't know what the heck this open circuit does or closed circuit does. I want to try and avoid some of that stuff on the front end. And
that's a good call.
And so with that takes me probably by the engine choice into a TH350 or a TH400 probably, rather than a 700 R4 or 4L60 or 4L80. So if that's the case, then I'm sure this gentleman can still come up with that, or I could find something else. But am I not able to buy an adapter or get an adapter from the FJ40 transfer case, the tail cone on these GM transmissions, or is that not possible? Because I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, no, you can get, those are pretty big. Advanced Adapters has adapters that go, so the number one, the 19 spline, the transfer case I mentioned, that 19 spline transfer case has a nice set of adapters, right? That'll go to several different transmissions. And I think everyone we've talked about is available.
Yeah. So
you can go from like the NV 4500 from Dodge, you can go 4L60, 700, the TH, right? All those different trannies, they have an adapter, if I remember correctly, for that transfer case. And then that's the way I would do it. And it's you're dropping on the right side, right? It's good choice. And I don't know about I'm not familiar with the TH series. I mean, they're just an older version, but yeah, I looked into trains for a while, and the 700R4 to me, or the 4L60, depending on which way you're going to go with, is the one to go with. I was looking at old school, 700R4 is the way to go. And I'm not sure the bolt patterns on the the bell housing bolt. There's so many different variations. Actually, we start looking into it, right?
Yep.
The transmissions have bell housing, some of them don't, right? Depends on the year you're looking at. But for the most part, to me, the 700R4 with its gearing, right, overdrive, super broad compatibility, right, with Chevy V8s, that'd be the way I would go. And then again, you got the adapters for them and all that.
Okay.
But because the TH series, right, the 350s don't, like I said, I'm not too familiar with. They don't have overdrives, do them? Do you do that?
I don't think the TH350 does. The 400 does, if I remember right.
Yeah. I'm not. Yeah, I have to look at that. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into those too much. And but your idea on the fuel injection kit afterwards is, I guess, when I said more modern engine, that's kind of what I meant actually, as far as not doing it with a kit, but having those technologies, right, on the motor. So having the ability, because I've ran snipers now forever, I don't have a stock motor anymore without a sniper fuel injection system on it. I've done 5 of them now, and those are well worth the money. Best upgrade on your drivetrain you could do, if you have a stock, straight 6 in them. So I think the same thing would be true for any V8 that you'd add. Old school V8 with that on it would be, really nice.
Okay.
So yeah, because you can monitor it properly. Your eyes gives you a screen. I mean, there's not a lot of, you could tune them even. They're still self-learning. So as long as you put it together right, it'll perform really well.
Okay. And I do have a local resource that's here in town. There's even though it's a town, I live near a town of about 1,000 people. There's a gentleman here that's highly accomplished race guy, and he does a fuel injection and dyno shop not far from here. And I mean, he lives to set these things up. So I have somebody to give me a hand with that if I actually need it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I'm probably going to have some more things I've got to chase, but depending on the transmission length, tail shaft length, and where this transfer case comes out, I may have to have drive shafts made longer or shortened, I assume. And then is there a sweet spot for this I need to be looking for so my drive line angularity isn't too severe? Or what concerns do I have to there?
I don't know, Drew, have you ever run into any of that before?
No, I bought mine the way it is.
Yeah, as far as I had 2 rigs with the V8, right, with V8s in them, and that does, I mean, depending on how you do it and what you throw behind it and all that, but you know, doing what we're talking about, you know, V8, let's say with a TH450 or 700 or whatever, and then adapter and then transfer case, you're talking, I think it's something like a 14-inch rear drive shaft is what I want to say.
Jeez.
That they end up being, right? And that's just barely enough room for the CV, you know, for the, it has to have some flex in there, some give and take. So that's been done, right, all day, every day, and people run it without too much of a problem. It's just something to be aware of when you're putting it all together. And the engine, you know, try to get it up as front as much as you can, but there's a lot of references on that to where to set everything so it all, you know, will still work for you. Okay. But that's one thing about, you know, extending wheelbases, right? So one of the things that I guess we didn't talk about earlier was to get a little bit better drivability. You know, flipping your rear springs actually is one of those things that actually would benefit you a little bit, because you know, they call it, you know, people talk about doing the shackle reversal in the front, which is good, but now flipping the rear springs, there's more to it than just that, but that gives you about a 4-inch wheelbase increase, 3 to 4, somewhere in there. It depends on what kind of spring you're running. And some people don't even flip them, right? They'll just move the, you know, the bolt. There's different ways of doing it, but then you have issues with, you know, your rear wheel well, right, and the way that looks compared to the axle and all that. So, but that's an easy way to get wheelbase, which gives you, right, a little bit more comfort, a little better, you know, all the little things. You put all this stuff together and you get, you know, a lot better driving experience. So something to think about, at least.
Well, what I was really worried about when I used to set chassis up for different trucks, I knew that I didn't want driveline angularity, or I shouldn't have, let me put it to you like this. I didn't want there to be more than 17 degrees of this in a drive shaft, or else it would start to vibrate at the U-joint. Okay. Yeah, so if I've got a transfer case yoke here and a rear end yoke here, and I have to put a drive shaft between those, that isn't going to work. But if I have to do it like that,
they'll point the,
that's
well,
different.
they'll point the, a lot of guys will point that rear to it. They'll point it at the right. And so you can kind of, you can play with that a little bit without worrying about messing up your,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
My rear drive shaft has been cut. They've cut the perches and then rotated it and then welded in new perches. Okay. I know that.
So they pitched the differential up, I assume, Drew.
Yep.
Yeah, but left your, what would that be? Your caster or your, you know, everything's set, right? Especially the rear axle is really set. So you have to just be aware of it. You can get away with, I forget how many degrees you can get away without, you know, cutting. But if you got a real short situation back there, right, and like you're describing, then yeah, you may have to do a more drastic modification. But I would try to avoid, you know, doing that unless that's not a big deal. I wouldn't like to cut on an axle myself. It kind of freaked me out a little bit. Just for the, you know, potential issues down the road, a leak, you know, you have a little leak or you got something, whatever. You know, if you're gonna take it to a professional to do it, then hey, you know, all day. But,
am I fabbing the engine mounts for this small block Chevy, or are there adapters or pieces or engine mounts rather that go into where the 1 or 2F come out? Because I need to know, I'm thinking about whether I need to be prepared to adapt that, or they're good bolt-ons, because that's a question I haven't really chased.
Yeah, there's plenty of kits out there. Yeah. Okay. So so basically it would entail you cutting off the mounts that it has, right? So you got the 2 motor mounts there in the front. You take those out, so you cut those out, grind everything down so it's flat. You know, if you're going to go different steering, right, get rid of that pedestal, your steering box pedestal. Oh, so basically all that area is clean. And then you'd put in your like an advanced adapter. It has a lot of people, actually there's several kits out there specifically for the 40 series, and they even have drawings and stuff exactly where you should place it, you know, how off center that you need to be. I think it's, I forget what the dimensions are, but you actually place a V8, I believe, if I remember right, off on the passenger side or so, you know, by an inch or so. So it's a little bit different. You know, so when you put those mounts on there, it's, you know, it's standard fab stuff, you know, mocking, you know, getting things tack welded, figure it out, right? Get it exactly where you need to be, and then weld it up. But yeah, that's those are plentiful out there, those types of kits. And it's another one of those good things about mud. You know, there's a lot of dudes that have done that, so there's some good reference out there.
Yeah.
I have not personally done that exact job, but I fixed another guy's one that he did. I had actually a Corvette engine, a 327 Corvette engine in one of mine, and I refabbed the mounts on it. Basically, he had them in there, but I just kind of basically took them off, and they weren't very good. Took them off and put them back on, sort of thing. So I had a little bit of experience on that, but yeah, I don't think that's going to be too much trouble. It's pretty actually, that's a pretty easy job. If you know how to weld, that's pretty easy.
Yeah, I think I'll be okay with that.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well,
I want to go back to that original, Angelo's render of that FJ43.
Yeah. Check that out again.
I think I need that. I mean, I really need that in my life.
You want to take a picture of it? Yeah.
No, I've
right,
seen one like that. I think, okay. But I was thinking it, because it addresses part of that angularity problem. It gives you a little more wheelbase. I don't think you're going to be worried about too much wheelbase in the FJ40, especially if you lift it.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll even improve your departure angle when you think about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not sure if you'll ever get this or have one come up, because I think any 43 out there right now, if you were to buy one, right, you're going to get one coming in from Columbia or wherever they come from, and then they're going to be 20 grand for a pretty beat up one. But I've talked to 2 different manufacturers of bodies, right? I've talked to Aqualoo, right, does the aluminum bodies,
right, and
they will sell me exactly what I want in a rear tub, just the rear half, right? So if you buy a rusted out relic, right, that's really beat to hell, and you want to do a longer setup, right, they can actually do, let me bring that picture back up. You'd think I would just have it right here ready to go. Where the hell did it go? All right. Thing about it is I have hundreds of pictures. That's the problem. Okay.
But I wonder what it involved if you just had a regular FJ40 that needed work and you just stretched it.
That's what I'm doing to mine. The one I'm currently working on is a 77. I have a 66 frame that I'm putting underneath it, and so you guys can see that again, right? I think.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what this is what mine's going to end up being pretty much, is this right here, different color, but soft top with a wheelbase just about right there. So what that is, so a 43 has a body extension of 14 inches and a wheelbase extension of 4, right? Which is why when you look at a stock 43, the rear axle looks like it's way up front. This rendering, I just centered the rear axle in the body, in the rear tub. So that is actually 7 inches back farther. So that's a total stretch, right, of 11 as far as your wheelbase goes. So you go from 90 to 101 in this particular setup. 100-inch wheelbase, right? That's nice. That extra 11 inches is really good for all kinds of good stuff like we're talking about. Now, like I said, though, Aqualoo will sell you that rear end with the wheel well cut out wherever you want it. So you don't have to stick with the wheel well wherever, right? You can get the wheel well put in the dead in the middle like that. And they're not that expensive. And then if you contact the guy at, now it's been about a year since I inquired. The Land Cruiser Haven guy, he's got some bad and good reviews, right? As far as the stuff he sells, he seems to be rolling pretty good now. But I've talked to him about this exact same thing, and so they can do the same thing with a steel tub. They get you, if you want to stick with steel, they'll do the same thing with steel tubs, and they'll even, and that's what I actually had him quote me on, was just the fenders. I just wanted the quarter panels with the drip rail. I mean, with the top rail on it. You know,
Right, right.
and he could do those. He can put that. And he can custom make them just like that.
You're going to have to, if you get anything you can afford, you're going to have to redo those.
Yeah.
100% chance you're going to have to redo that.
Oh yeah. Quarter panels are going to have to be replaced. So if you're going to do something like that, though, see, the best way to do it for me was I'm going to stretch the frame, right, and place the mounting points for the rear leaf springs, and then buy the quarter panels, right, do the other fab stuff as well. There's a lot of fab there, but the quarter panels are the main thing, right? That's the biggest part. It's the part everybody sees, right? It's where you want it to be nice, and knowing that you can get those panels is really nice. But as far as, if you're going to stick with the 40 and the shorter wheelbase, same thing's going to apply. You're not going to find one that's not going to need quarter replacements, or at least patching and all that kind of stuff. So,
Sure.
Something to think about, at least, and it's not that expensive. Both quarter panels are under $1,000 shipped.
So let me regurgitate this back to you to make sure I understand what you're saying. In order to build an FJ40 into what we're seeing here on the screen, you're adding roughly a foot to the frame.
It's an overall body. It's a body and frame stretch of 14 inches, but you don't stretch it. It's weird. It's kind of a little bit complicated, but you don't stretch it. You don't just stretch it in one, like the frame itself. You stretch it 14 inches.
Yep.
Over is what you end up with. But if you think about it, though, the way it's set up, you got to do that strategically, because the ass end, right, needs to be extended behind the rear axle.
Right.
And then in front of where the attachment points are, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but right here, you guys see that, right?
Yeah.
So right where the least attached to the frame, that attachment point has to be. This is the trick, right? It has to be 11 inches back from stock. Okay. So it's weird. It's a weird. I mean, I gotta think. The numbers could be wrong. I have to rethink that, but it's a little bit of a different trick. Like I said, it's overall from the 43. It's a 7-inch back farther from what it was stock. So overall, from a 40 series standpoint, to get this particular look, it's an 11-inch wheelbase stretch.
Okay.
But it's a overall 14-inch stretch for your frame. And
so how are you stretching the frame?
In two places. I'm cutting it just in front of the where the rear leaf springs attach in the front, those front ones. And then in the back, I'm just extending the frame out back. That's the easy part. Just extending the frame out. That way, it's going to be 3 or 4 inches.
So when you want to do a hard top, how are you you're gonna have to fab that roof in?
Yeah. Hard top ain't gonna happen unless you completely fab it yourself.
Oh.
Yeah, because that's a whole other. I mean, which is doable. I've seen on others guys that do that. So if you have good welding skills, fab skills, then just buy yourself 2, right, hard top sides, or 2 sets, I should say, and then start cutting and put them together.
Okay. So I just offered in fiberglass and steel both, or aluminum all 3, or what?
The only place I've seen hard tops actual are going to be through like what's his name, Gozzard, right? He's got fiberglass hard tops, and as far as what last time I checked on his site, he has some modified rear hard top panels that he could probably either already has them stretched for you. See, and here's the good thing. This particular setup, which is why I'm going with it, is a 14-inch stretch, right? Body-wise. That is a known commodity in the 40 series world, right? The 43s have been around a long time down in South America. So there's a lot of aftermarket stuff that fits that exact size. As a matter of fact, who is it so Aqualoo, like I mentioned, is that they sell 43 series bodies now, just straight the whole body, right? All aluminum. They have those. That Cruiser Heaven, whatever it's called, they have the 43 bodies that you get. And there's Citroa. There's a place called Citroa that has that's down in Columbia. They make the replacement bodies. They actually make the replacement bodies for the FJ company. I found out. I talked to the one of their sales reps, actually a lady down there, and they provide all the steel for FJ company. The only thing is, FJ company, when they get those steel bodies and stuff from them, they completely go over them. So it's like a redone, you know, the quality, I guess the quality isn't necessarily the greatest, but but what I'm saying is that body size is out there. And so soft tops, you can buy them straight without any modification, which is why I'm doing mine the way I'm doing it, because I can buy a soft top off eBay or several different places that'll just go right onto it, right?
Well, what I'm seeing there looks fantastic, but I'll tell you straight up, I'm going to have to think through stuff like that, because that's bumping up my budget quite a little bit, probably. But the thing that I understand about what you're saying is I know that any vehicle that I buy is going to need that work in the rear end anyway. So it's going to get new parts back there. I grant you that.
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out whether how far I could actually move an FJ40 unmolested frame, the rear end aft, and get away with it. And it probably doesn't look like it's a lot, just a few inches probably.
You can move it about 6 to 8. I have mine back about 6 right now.
Okay.
Well,
hey, Dave, look at
I pushed my front and forward about 5.
So overall, you're at 100 or more now, David?
About, yeah.
All right.
It's on my crawler though, so I moved perches and everything, and I'm linked up front. So.
Oh, nice.
But
yeah, so it's
you can move them.
Doable. And then, but then again, you got to think about, you know, if you want it to be aesthetically looking, you know, balanced, then when you do like David said, right, you're going to move that rear axle back and move the front axle forward. Then there's a lot of other things that go into that as far as, you know, how you want it to look.
Yeah.
Right. Then you get into cutting your fender wells, maybe the bigger size tires. That kind of helps balance that all out as far as aesthetics go. You know, it doesn't really have much to do with performance, but
right.
You know, I think something to think about, at least when if you're going to do a stretch without really stretching it with frame wise and all that.
Yeah.
And there's a guy here in Salem, actually outside of Salem. Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that's the number one thing, is any kind of wheelbase stretch on these things is going to help you with comfort. Yeah. And you don't really lose much, like in steering, you know, what do you call it? Steering radius and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty much doesn't really get affected all that much. There's a guy though, what I recommend for frame stretching, I would never stretch the frame myself, right? That's just something I'm not going to mess with, because there's a lot of, like, my life is in danger, you know, could be in danger if I did that myself. So there's a guy here that does, you know, like hot rods all day long, right? He does chops, frame chop. They do that kind of thing, pickups, trucks, and hot rods. And I went over there and talked to him, showed him what I had as far as my frame goes, what I wanted to do. It was $650 for him to stretch it the way I wanted, and re-weld the rear perches and all that. So that was a great deal, I thought, right? And it saves me the hassle of doing it, and I know it's done right and it's welded properly, you know, that kind of thing. So something to think about. And like we're saying, you know, there's stretching one of these things there's more to it than just doing the, you know, frame stretch, as far as, but there's all the stuff you need is out there. That's the thing, right? Everything's there. You can get whatever you need to have in order to be able to do this without too much trouble, right? So that's the key, really. If it was like, if I had to make all this stuff myself, you know, weld in all the panels and do all that, I wouldn't even mess with it. But you could buy it pretty much off the shelf, like I said, from at least those 2 companies. I'm sure probably more. I was going to inquire with that question with Real Steel, right? Because a lot of the guys use Real Steel for their body parts and stuff. Yeah. And that's something that they would probably be able to do too. I mean, I can't imagine it's not that hard to, you know, put together. But yeah, I mean, I think it's well worth it for what you want to do for drivability, putting a V8 in it, longer drivetrain, all those different things we talked about. You know, having and I mean, look at those rear jump seats. Aren't those things amazing? I mean, and by the way, he can the same dude, the Line Cruiser Haven guy in Florida, he can get those. He can get 43 series jumps. So
that's starting to get into sketchy South American stuff though, which I would never touch personally, ever.
Yeah, but it's just jump seats, so I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, but I would never touch any. I would never touch any South American bodies. I know you said that you're making the stretched body stuff. I would never touch any of the South American stuff. I would only go through Aqualoo personally. They actually, their stuff fits.
Yeah, Oclu's, they got
What
nice stuff.
What about, I've got a question about tilt steering columns and that kind of stuff. Is anybody doing much of that?
No, not usually. I mean, really, most people just do a smaller steering wheel. Which, I mean, those are massive steering wheels in there, and although it takes away from, I think, the Toyota look, it's worth doing, especially if you have power steering, because you don't need the massive wheel in there.
So Michael, you're kind of a big fellow like myself, right? And so when you're sitting one of those things, right, that's one of the things you get that's literally the steering wheel rubs on your thigh. You know, I mean, you get that warm and tender with them. So you got this, having a smaller wheel, like I said, or putting a tilt on there is pretty nice. Like, and I did it, you know, you could get those just bought, but again, it's money, right? So, but the I did it columns are nice in that they're, you can get them sized just exactly how you want, and, you know, and they're made to be, you know, not necessarily bolted on, but they're fairly straightforward. And
What
if
did
you're
you,
throwing
what was the
automatic,
nomenclature? What was the manufacturer name that you used?
I did it.
Okay.
Yeah, I did it, and I think the proper length on those is 32. I want to say there's, you know, they make them in every different length you can think of. I want to say 32 is like what the icons run, I believe. You know, those I think they run that length, and then they're made for, like, you know, all that for that type of mod. That's where you could begin, right? If you're gonna do a steering modification with a new steering box, and you're gonna have, you know, all the different, you know, shafts and stuff that are involved with that. The I did it is kind of made, you know, for that, you know, as part of one of those upgrades. So
yeah,
I'd honestly go through and move seats before I did anything with the steering column. Because I personally, I really like the look of the 40 steering column, and it really keeps the vintage
it
look.
looks cool. The aesthetic is pretty.
But it's pretty easy. You can always flip the sliders around or build new brackets and move the seat back, which is also getting an aftermarket seat. I like the Corbeau stuff. Really will help a ton with that.
are people adding in extra tanks and stuff, or are they just using the standard passenger side fuel tank and that's it?
Well, so on my crawler, I have a 30-gallon tank under my seats. It's aluminum that I did. I know a lot of guys will do the mana-free or whatever auxiliary tanks under the rear bed. I know with my dad's cruiser, we just have the normal one, but it's like 14 gallons, and you are severely limited in range. So it's a trade-off. That's one of those things that's kind of up to how much you're wanting to drive.
Yeah, but the mana-free style, there's different companies that make it. You know, that rear tank is nice for sure. I had one rig that had one of those. It was nice to have that extra fuel, and it had the under seat tank as well. You know, I had a switch dual. You can switch between the two. The S10 Chevy Blazer S10 tank, right? That's a tank that a lot of people run. If you want to put something in the rear that doesn't cost, you know, $1,000. The Chevy S10 brand new tanks, and it depends on what kind of motor you have and what kind of fuel injection system, but you can buy an S10, 23-gallon tank with the pump and everything for under $200. And the pump is 60 PSI, if I remember right. There's 2 different PSI ratings on those. You get the right one for your sniper setup, and that would be perfect. And they do hang down a little bit. You know, it's gonna be hanging down, but like I said, you're not doing any major rock crawling, and you're you know, the angles in the back there, you know, what do you call it, not a approach angle, arch, I think it's arch angle. You're with the 43, you're gonna lose a little bit of it anyways, but with a gas tank you'll lose a little bit. But like I said, if you're not going any hardcore off-roading, then should be good. And there's plenty. I think 23 is pretty good size, and it fits in that back area nicely. And you can do a couple of Google searches on that. You can find out about it.
Well, that's one of the, that all depends on the engine as well. I mean, because I know with the small block, which you were saying you were wanting, you get 12 to 15 if you're lucky. And that all depends. I know in my crawler, I'm getting closer to the 10 to 12 on average with a 380 3-stroker, but it's one of those.
There's usually a
that-
30% bullshit margin in there, so you're probably getting like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Because you know, you like to talk
Yeah.
about mileage. You know, oh, I'm getting 17 in my 2F.
Yeah. But that's one of those where having extra fuel really is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, because I know with my 30-gallon tank under the seat, that's really like 500-600 miles out of a tank is a great.
Oh yeah, no, that's You want to be. I think 300 is like the sweet spot, right? You want to.
Well,
You know, a modern day car that's off road, whatever. Like I have a 4Runner, so new 4Runner, fill it up, you get about 300 miles ish. You know, if you're lucky. So.
Yeah.
So David, you got a tank under the driver's seat and passenger seat both.
Yeah, it's a custom aluminum that I built.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I've seen those. I've seen some kits out there too. There's a couple companies that make basically it just stretches all the way across both, both seats there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those
That's
are-
the one thing that they're nice, but for me, one of the difficulties I have with a long, narrow tank like that is hard off camber. I can run my pump dry.
Yeah.
If I'm not careful. So that's something you'll probably never face. But
I hope not. Okay. Well, I asked the questions that I wanted to ask and I got some direction. I appreciate it. We're pushing what, an hour and 10 minutes or thereabouts that we've been on.
Yeah, I can't believe it. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, we zipped right through it. Was there anything that we wanted to visit about real quick before we go, or what's the thoughts of the group here?
I don't know. I'd still say, I know you guys are saying the autos are nice, but I personally would still always stick with, I'd go for just an H55. It's simple. You can get a split case behind it really easily, and it's short, which is what you really want for a 40. Because as soon as you start going auto and you get the adapters and everything, you get the really short rear drive lines, and that starts to cause all the problems like you were talking about with your angles, which can be solved with the double cartons and going and playing with the rear axle and stuff. But even if you flip the springs and push your axle back like 3 inches, you're not gaining enough to make up what you've already lost by sticking in a new transmission. And that's one of those that all the 40s suffer from. And I know, like with my rock crawler, I have a 17-inch rear drive shaft because I have a doubler and a split case in it, along with a new Venture, and it works, but it is scary sometimes. And that's one of those that, especially with the stock 40, trying to lengthen your drive lines are really hard. And the V8 will push it back, especially if you're on a mechanical fan and a good radiator, which you will probably need. That's all something to take into consideration. And that's one of the ones that it's just easier to do a manual, I think. There's a lot.
Are there many manuals out there, David, or anybody that offer overdrive or not?
Yeah, there's tons. The H55 is the Toyota factory manual that they did in the 60s. At least some of them, 60s and 70s and stuff. And you can still get them new, I believe, or at least at the split cases and stuff.
Last time I checked, they're out. Yeah, just under $2,000 for one of them.
You can get them new. It's like a 0.85 overdrive, which isn't great. Most of the GM stuff is 0.8 and around there. So it's not great, but you fix that with your axle gearing. But it's short, it bolts up, and it fits really nicely into 40s, which is why people always do them. There's the new Venture 4500, which is a great transmission. It's a truck transmission. It's a really nice granny gear. They're pretty intolerable to do 85 down the highway all day long, and it doesn't care. Same with the small block that helps with it, because those don't mind turning at a little bit higher RPM. There's a lot of different transmissions you could put in there. You can start looking at some of the newer color gears and stuff, but there's enough ones that honestly I just recommend the H55 for me. If I was doing something again, it's an easy one to put in, and it keeps a lot of Toyota DNA, which I like. So that's kind of up to you. But
I guess I'll just have to start measuring these things out and see where I end up. I like the idea of an auto because my wife's more likely to drive it.
Yeah, I know this. So sorry, I know that there's some Toyota autos that people have put in. I know Profits do a lot of the 3FE, the 3-4. What the
audio.
auto trans is behind it. They put odds that can be done within. Yep. Sorry, my internet kind of sucks here, but yeah, there's different autos
That's okay.
that I know people put in, but
Well, if I wanted to really be stupid, I could
that's
put in
just
a
one
power
where
glide.
you just have to kind of measure and decide.
Here, I'll throw something out there that people will freak out on. For my engine choice for my rig that I'm building, I already decided on. I told you guys earlier. I figured I might as well spill the beans. So it's
I like that. I need that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm out.
I guess the one thing I'll say for you real quick is it's your rig, build it the way you want it. There'll be a lot of people that say, oh, it's stupid and whatnot. And that's one where build it so where it works for you.
100. That's right. That's very true.
I agree.
That's always one that is hard because people always say, oh, that's stupid, or oh, don't do it, it'll ruin the value. And it's one, if it adds value to you and it seems like it's worth doing to you, it's probably worth doing. I mean, like for me, people say, oh, don't bed liner the interiors of 40s for bottoms. It's like, if you're using it a lot, why not? Even though it's harder to get off sometimes, it's one of those where if you're not ripping up your paint all the time, it's worth doing.
Sure.
And that's just one of those, make sure you build it to what you want, not what everybody else wants. And I know that's sometimes hard to do, but it's
no, I think I've got a pretty good handle on that. What I'm trying to do is I want to measure twice and cut once. I want to figure this out, map it out, draw it out, look at it, and then say, okay, have I created any pitfalls inherently that I could avoid or I could have avoided? I don't want to build this and say, man, I should have done this, or I really created a problem over here that now I've got to take care of. Those are the kinds of things I want to avoid. But am I afraid of somebody flipping me the business because I've got a small block Chevy and a hickey on top of the hood because there's a turbo or
I think
supercharger in there? No, I don't care if somebody's upset about that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's also the other rule.
One benefit I would say real quick is if you find one already done with a V8 in it, even though the V8 may be trashed, that might be a good, nice, right?
Yes.
Good time saver. And if it was done correctly, right? You look at it, the welds are good, right? That might be a huge, savings for you.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm not interested in buying something that just has a V8 in it just because it's got it. But if it's been done well or relatively well, that may save a lot of time and energy.
Oh yeah.
Or keep some money back in my budget to make some changes from what I see.
Yeah, remember, take your budget and double it for one of these things.
Yeah.
There'll always be stuff that pops out.
Yeah, I understand.
But yeah,
just don't pay attention. Just don't pay attention to it. Is my motto.
Yeah, just hide the receipts. It's not a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I'm out, guys. Thank you again.
All right.
Yeah,
Nice meeting everybody.